Things break at threes and tens in revenue. Things break at 100,000, 300,000, a million, 3 million, 10 million, 30 million, they break. And the thing is, Mark, a different thing breaks every time. You can't scale over and stay over $300,000 a year in revenue if you can't delegate well. If you can't work through other people, $1 million is where you've got to really learn how to delegate projects well and probably hire your first real manager and start to delegate that, the day-to-day delivery of certain things. 3 to 10, you're delegating results at this point. There's a plan and we have goals and we know where we're going. But man, I need to hire someone to deliver on those results now. And 10 million plus, you're delegating strategy. You're bringing in your right executives who can truly bring in strategy to drive the business forward.
From Sales Loop, this is How to Sell More, where B2B business leaders get fresh sales and marketing ideas and proven strategies from industry experts and seasoned entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Mark Drager, and on today's episode, we're exploring how to break through the painful barriers that every business faces as it grows and scales. Specifically, what happens to your systems and your processes, your focus, your vision? What happens when you hit the threes and the tens? That is the revenue milestones of 100K, 300K, a million, 3 million, 10 million, 30 million, and beyond. Now, if you're a business owner who's listening to this and you feel trapped by your own success, you want to reclaim your time, you want to reclaim your energy, or maybe you're hitting a ceiling in your own growth and you need to understand what's really holding you and your culture and your team and your company back. Or perhaps you're ready to move from being a performer to being a true business builder who can scale beyond your own personal capacity, beyond your own personal skill sets. Regardless, this episode is for you. Now, helping us explore this topic today is Trevor Mauch. He is the founder and CEO of Carrot, a SaaS company that's not only grown through and past these exact revenue milestones we're going to cover today, but he's helped thousands of other businesses do the same through his lead generation platform. Now, a few quick highlights about Trevor before we get into the conversation. As I mentioned, he has navigated these growth barriers, these pain points, these pain lines we're going to talk about today by bootstrapping Carrot from startup to an 8-figure company that's made it on the Inc. 5000 list multiple years running. Now, before Carrot, he co-founded other successful and maybe, interestingly enough, other unsuccessful ventures, which has really given him a unique perspective on what breaks and when it breaks as companies scale. Now, today, he leads a team of over 50 employees, proving that he has mastered this transition from performer to builder. But more importantly, he's dedicated to helping other entrepreneurs like you, like me, avoid the costly mistakes he's had to work through himself by creating frameworks and systems to help owners break through these revenue ceilings. So with that, I'm excited to share the conversation that I had with Trevor Mauch. So at an event last year, Trevor, you gave a presentation that really stuck with me about how as entrepreneurs, as business leaders, we tend to get comfortable at each stage of the business's growth until it ends up feeling almost as if we're a bit trapped. Can you share what you've discovered about these different growth barriers, these different stages that keep holding us back? And more importantly, what can we do about it?
Mark, I'm pumped to come on here, man. And I know right before we hit record on this, we're kind of riffing back and forth on some of the lessons and the challenges as entrepreneurs, or even not even just entrepreneurs, just leaders, people who want to grow. And dude, this is one of my greatest passions is to talk about this stuff, right? My business does something else. We don't sell coaching on this. We don't do this stuff. But this is a passion of mine because I see so many of us entrepreneurs building businesses that trap us. And we can talk in this episode on how to make sure that doesn't happen.
Well, I had this moment maybe back in 2013 or 14, this moment of realization. I started my agency in 2006. But this moment of realization that for each one of my staff members, their work, their time, their experience, but the time that they're going to spend in my firm is a stepping stone on the path of their career. And for me as the business owner, this was a shackle that I could never get free from.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And dude, and that's the thing, right? When we start as entrepreneurs, we usually have some sort of a dream, right? We have a dream that we're stepping into. And what I've found, Mark, over the years, at least for me, and I think it's pretty true across a lot of others, is when we start something, we're usually moving away from something. It's like, there's something I don't like about my current state. I don't like the job I've got, or even I don't like my current business, or I don't like that there's an income ceiling, or I'm going to prove these people wrong in my life and I'm going to go do this thing. Usually we're propelled forward by something behind us, something that's pushing us, a pain, right, that we're trying to get away from. And the challenge that happens is we get excited about that. But as soon as we're away from that pain, as soon as we're away from the business that we don't like, which I can tell a story on how I ran away from a business I didn't like into a new one, or we're away from that job, we forget then to move forward and move towards something. We forget to have a vision that we're excited about moving towards. And then we get stuck in the maintenance mode. We get stuck in what I call the 3-year turn and burn cycle of our businesses. And that's where it gets energy draining, man. That's where it gets bad.
So back in 2012, you walked away from a business partnership. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so in 2012, and kind of bringing people up to speed now, I've got a company called Carrot, and we're 50 plus employees, 8-figure a year business. But at that time, 2012, I was on the tail end of a business with my business partner. Love him to death, dude. We're still great friends. Patrick Riddle, he goes and speaks at the family events that we met at. And he's an amazing dude, runs a multiple 8-figure business today. That was the business we started. But dude, I had grown tired of my role in that business. I had grown to resent even waking up to do work in that business that I had created with Patrick. I had been doing all these things in that job that I was getting paid well for, that people told me I was really good at, right? Man, Trevor, you're really good at writing copy or video sales letters. We were the first ones to bring a VSL into the real estate investing space, and it blew up. I wrote the VSL. I recorded it. I did all that stuff. And I got paid well for it. And what starts to happen when you start getting money sent your way and people give you accolades saying you're good at the thing, you go, oh, maybe that's what I should be doing more of. What I didn't discover though, Mark, is I would draw the line down the middle of the paper and people would tell me, hey, on one side of the paper, put things that make me money. And on the other side, put things that don't. And you got your list. And they said, do everything you can do to get rid of everything on the left side of the things you're doing that don't make you money and put all your time into things that make you money. And I did that. And I became miserable. We had our first child in 2010. And I remember vividly, during that first year, my wife was going to work and took our daughter to daycare. And I remember vividly multiple days laying there at 10 a.m. when I should be working. My wife was working. My daughter was at daycare. I should have been working. I'm looking at the ceiling like, I don't even want to do the work today. I don't want to do it. And so this was an online publishing company and it did well, right? We weren't making millions per year, but it did well. And what I discovered now in full hindsight, Mark, right? Today, as of the time we're recording this, and Patrick took that business, repositioned after a few pivots where it didn't work, then it blew up, and he's going to do 30 million plus, right? I took my energy into a new business that grew into 8 figures. We're both now in our genius zones. We flip-flopped. We're doing the opposite today of what our roles were at that time. And what my big realization was, have a buddy named Greg and joined my first ever mastermind in 2012 because I'm like, I need to find myself, man. I need to figure out how to grow past this because I see that guy, Greg, seems like he's got the life that I kind of feel like I want, the life he's got. I just wasn't grateful for the life that I had looking back. But he had a team. And at that time, he had 20 employees, which might as well have been 1 million employees to me. I didn't know how to lead people well. And he had multiple businesses, and it seemed like he could go into that business and do the things he was good at. Then he went to the other business, did things he was good at, and other people did the other work. I'm like, I have no clue how to bridge from where I am to where you are. The one piece of advice, and I'll toss it back to you, that changed everything for me. He goes, Trevor, do you know what gives you energy? And I really hadn't sat down to think about it. And he said he learned from Dan Sullivan through Strategic Coach. And I joined Dan Sullivan's coaching program that next year for 1 year. He's like, dude, once you find your unique ability and it's the stuff that gives you energy, you have more energy when you're done doing the thing than when you started. And ideally, it can also drive value into the world. He's like, once you find that, dude, you just index all into that, forget everything else. And I ended up working hard. It took me about 1.5 years to really nail it, to deprogram how I was thinking. And I changed the exercise, line down the middle of the paper. Everything that gives me energy on one side, everything that drains my energy on the other side. And this is what changed my life in the end of 2012, Mark. I created what I call my energy audit. And I can give people a free link to or just my worksheet if they wanted it. But I'm like, what if I just flip the script? Rather than me optimizing for money and or productivity and time, what if I optimize for energy? Because even if I wasn't making money and I had high energy and I was enjoying things, I'd much rather have that than making a lot of money and hating it. And so I did, dude. Starting there, I circled the 2 or 3 things that are draining my energy the most each week. I put down how many hours per week I was spending on it, even if they made me a lot of money. And I just said, that's my number one priority this quarter, so get rid of those on my schedule and have someone else do those. And then I go to the energy give side of things. I'd be like, man, these things give me energy, but I'm not doing them. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to do this. And I'd circle that 10 hours I'm getting back by replacing myself in the energy draining revenue drivers. I'm like, I don't care if this makes me money. It gives me energy. I'm going to do it. That changed the game for me completely moving forward.
So at any point when you were doing this energy audit work to reclaim your time, did you worry about whether you could actually afford to make these changes? Because I'm thinking like many business owners, many leaders often feel the weight of responsibility of payroll, of overhead, of obligations. Even when we know we might be going a little too hard, we might be burning ourselves out.
Yeah. So in that business with Patrick, we didn't, because it always ran really lean. And I would say that he and I over-indexed and probably did a lot more work than we maybe could have or should have, right? We were young. I didn't have a lot of obligations. We were just working a lot of hours. And in the early days, it was fun, right? In the early days, you get energy from it. But then once you start to be in maintenance mode of the business, you're not creating new and you're like trying to just run the machine you created. That's where we start to get trapped as a business owner. So not in that business, but in Carrot, what I started in 2014, about 2 to 3 years into that business, that happened. Okay. And so Carrot, our payroll is big like yours, well into the 7 figures per year. And I remember this would have been tail end of 2016 going into 2017 that this happened. Is I would stay up late, probably 3 to 4 nights a week. I'd put the kids to bed and my wife and I would have, some time together, maybe an hour or so. And not looking back, it wasn't insanely quality time, oftentimes watching some TV and just kind of winding down. And then she would go to bed at like 11. And then 3 to 4 nights a week, I would stay up and get work done. I work that I couldn't get done during the day, or my brain was just ready for it now. And I would stay up until 2, 3, 4 in the morning, sometimes getting that article written or making the thing that I need to make. And there was one day we were going to Klamath Falls, Oregon. I live in a small town in Oregon, and Klamath Falls, about 3 hours over the mountain. That's where I grew up. A road I've driven a million times. And it was the middle of the day. And one second I was awake with my wife and 3 kids in the car. And the next second I wasn't. I fell asleep, going 60 miles an hour on the highway in a mountain road. And I remember waking up, dude, just like it's in the movies, right? Like you wake up, you go, there's no way the guy woke up just in time to just barely scrape the guardrail and then stop. That's what happened. I woke up, my wife was reading, so she didn't see me veer off in a mountain road, curvies everywhere, hit the guardrail, scraped, stopped dead in the middle of the road. And I just couldn't speak. And my wife was like, what happened? And I said, I fell asleep. And so we swapped. I didn't drive for a family trip for 6 months after that. Now, here's where I'm going with this is, Mark, at that time, I had a mindset of, I will build this business off of my shoulders. Okay, I will build this business off of my shoulders. I was afraid of hiring a team and doing it the right way. That day, I just went cold turkey. I said, it's not worth my health or my family's health for this business. The only way I'm going to build this business is if it's with the team. Now I've got to learn how to do it with the team. Okay. So that's when I had to make that shift there to say, hey, I have to do this with other people. And I think we had 4 or 5, maybe 6 or 7 employees at that time. The next 2 years, we went up to about 25. And then we hit the next challenge, right? We hit the next spot. And one thing I talked about that in presentation, things break at 3s and 10s in revenue. Right? Things break at 100,000, 300,000, a million, 3 million, 10 million, 30 million, they break. And the thing is, Mark, a different thing breaks every time. But it's usually a leadership thing that you have to step into. You can't scale over and stay over $300,000 a year in revenue if you can't delegate well. If you can't work through other people, you just cannot stay there. You might get up to 500. That's what happened in the previous business. We got 5, 6, 7, then went back down because we didn't delegate well. Okay, especially me. So $1 million is where you've got to really learn how to delegate projects well, and probably hire your first real manager and start to delegate that, the day-to-day delivery of certain things. 3 to 10, you've got to start to really delegate different things, right? You're delegating results at this point now. I've got to learn how to delegate results. There's a plan and we have goals and we know where we're going, but man, I need to hire someone to deliver on those results now and make sure that I'm coaching them well and holding them accountable. 10 million plus, you're delegating strategy. You're bringing in your right executives who can truly bring in strategy to drive the business forward. Each one of those, Mark, I got stuck. Each one of those, I had the feeling that you did where it's like, oh man, I don't like the business again. Every single one of them. And you start to go, shoot, and why am I doing this? Because I have enough money now. Why should I go to the next level? Am I doing this just to pay the payroll? Or is there a greater reason? And what I had to do with each time, Mark, Every time I hit one of those pain lines, which you will hit those pain lines. Sometimes people fly through the pain lines. I flew through the 300,000, the million, and the 3 million in carrot because I had been stuck at those pain lines in the previous business. Okay. And I got a coach this time in 2016 to help me make it through it. The $10 million pain line, dude, that hit hard. And we can talk about that one if you want. But at each one of those, we hit the pain line. We have to ask a couple questions. Number one is, who do I need to become in order to grow through this next pain line? Like, what does a $30 million CEO look like versus where I am now? Or if I'm doing $1 million a year and I'm stuck and I'm hating my business, are there any examples of someone doing 5 million a year that enjoys their business? Okay, well, let me follow them. Let me figure out, what are their traits? How are they showing up? What are they doing differently? How are they leading differently? What's their mindset? Because I just need to do an identity upgrade to step into a new identity. Right? Your business will never outgrow your identity. Your business will never outgrow your identity. Okay. I've got a buddy who's a 9-figure CEO. He could step into my business tomorrow, and I guarantee the business would have no choice but to grow because he knows he is the identity of a 9-figure CEO. I would step into his business within a period of time. The business would have no choice but to shrink because I'm not an identity of a 9-figure CEO right now.
This is interesting though, because it works the opposite way as well. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm very, I wouldn't say comfortable, but I'm comfortable operating a $2 million company. Yeah. You know, as a service-based business, not even based on annual or monthly recurring revenue. That was like for year after year after year, I knew we had to find, replace, deliver $2 million in project work from scratch every single year. Mm-hmm. And I've seen this with CEOs who step out of maybe a medium-sized organization and they come to a smaller one. Yeah. Or I've seen this with people who are in corporate or CEOs who step into startup entrepreneurship, where maybe in fact they'd be better acquiring an existing company and scaling and running teams. And so this whole idea of identity mismatch, I think it's not that it's overlooked. I just don't think it's respected as much as it should be, because it really can throttle or impact the growth as well as the confidence and the ability of a company or a team.
Oh, big time, dude. I'm pulling up. If you're cool with it, I'm going to share something on my screen.
Hey guys, it's Mark from the future. We're in the process of actually editing this episode, and I wanted to just quickly jump in here to help set up the visual chart Trevor's about to walk us through. So for those of you who are listening, Trevor is opening up his screen, and he's actually going to walk through this really powerful visual that he's created that talks about the different barriers, the different growth barriers at each stage of business. So if you picture a chart, picture a table, and the chart shows different revenue milestones. So the first column is 100,000 to 300,000. The second column is 300 to 1 million. The next column is 1 million to 3 million, and then 3 million to 10 million, and then 10 million to 30 million. Now, at each of these levels, in each of these columns, there's a specific challenge or a specific pain line that business owners and leaders have to break through. Now, the most fascinating part about how our role as leaders need to change at each of these stages is the fact that at 300,000 to 1 million, it's a very different leader than at 1 million to 3 million or 10 million to 30 million. And Trevor's about to walk us through that. So I just want you to think about a very simple chart with these columns with the different pain lines. Now, if you would like to actually access this, if you'd like to download this, you can head over to trevormauch.com/freedom. trevormauch.com/freedom. The chart is there. You can go ahead and you don't have to enter your email. It's totally free. It's right there on the page. And then if you have the ability, you can kind of play along from home as we go through this. So let's get back into the conversation.
It's a chart, and I'll do my best, Mark, to kind of help people visualize it who are just hearing the audio part. But the reason I think this is important is because as we talk about growing the business and when you hit those pain lines at 3s and 10s, and then as you talk about, man, getting into those phases of the business where we're just waking up and it feels like the business is running us versus us running the business, right? Where we're just clocking in to make payroll to keep the thing alive versus moving towards a vision. That's normal. Like, that's the thing I want people to recognize. Number one is normal. Okay. If you're not experiencing that at these pain lines, amazing. You're the exception, not the rule, but you will eventually hit a pain line where that happens. And then we hit the spot where it starts to get hard. We then distract ourselves with the things that give us energy. And for going into the 8 figures, what happens with the CEO, oftentimes we go look for new projects. right? We're like, hey, I'm gonna go build a new product. And we almost take it as our pet project over here because we're not ready to deal with the rest of the issues and the whole rest of the business because it takes big decisions and oftentimes replacing people that we love. So we go distract ourselves with a new project or new business. But on the levels, essentially, we first recognize like what are the pain lines and what do those pain lines look like at each level. 300K to $1 million, the pain line there is delegation, where you cannot stay over 300K and get over $1 million unless you learn how to work through other people effectively. We've got to be able to help to work through other people to accomplish tasks through others. And to get to $1 million mark, what we do, and this is what you're amazing at, you mentioned, man, I can like clockwork nail $2 million a year. But one of the reasons it might have been harder for you to get higher is, dude, you are a performer, man.
Let me tell you, I don't think I've said this out loud on this podcast, but there was 4 years in a row where we did $1 million revenue plus or minus $20,000.
Yep.
And I just couldn't figure it out. I was like, at a certain point where you're like, oh, look, we did like 980, then we did $1 million, then we did $1 million 20, then we did $1 million again. It's like year after, like something is going on here where 4 years in a row, you do the exact same revenue. Like what's happening there?
Dude, and once again, number one, congratulations, because the percentage of people who build $1 million business is insanely low, right? So that's the first thing. Let's pull back and appreciate that, dude, that you worked magic, right? You literally spun magic and were able to create a $1 million business, which is the majority of people's dream.
It only took 7 years, man.
Hey, you did it though. And so what happened there, and I've been stuck there before as well. What happened there is we're a performer. Like we got to that level because we can perform. We got really good at something. You got really good at doing the craft of the agency. I could do the SEO stuff or the marketing stuff or the sales stuff. You got really good at selling your product. You got really good at marketing. And then you delegated things over. That's how you stayed over 300,000 or we're right there around $1 million because you could delegate the tasks well. And you were amazing. If you took you out of the business, it probably wouldn't have got to $1 million, right? But to get over $1 million then and stay over $1 million, let's get over the $3 million mark, we need to shift identity into a builder. No longer can the business be fully focused on me as the performer that's driving this revenue. I need to build. Well, what do I build? I build people. I build processes. I build structure in the business so others can help build the business too. I'm going to build the people are going to build the business. Okay. The pain line there then is scaling process. It's like, in order to get over 3 and stay over 3, we have to have process and we have to have people and we have to be able to have some sort of a cadence that manages that well, right? And that's hard. That's a really, really hard leap, and why a lot of people get stuck at the $1 million. They'll get stuck at 900,000 or 1.1 or 1.2 or 2 million, then they'll shrink back down because they haven't learned to go, hey, this business can't be built fully around me to make it successful. And here's what happens. Our purpose needs to start to shift as well. So we've got to really pull back and create a new skill. I've got to shift into an identity of a builder. And then I'll move up to this next one and I'll stop there. 3 to 10 million, the pain line that we hit is leadership, right? It's leadership. It's like, oh man, now not only if I try to build this business strictly off of my sheer will and performance in this 1 or 2 things amazingly well, the wheels are going to fall off because I can't commit to being everywhere at once. We're going to start to let customers down, and there's just a bunch of things that are going to happen. Okay. So I need to be a good leader because now, I built processes good and I could build a hiring process and I hired some people, but now I need my people to build the business. Well, I've got to be a leader. What does a leader look like? What traits does a leader have? How does a leader show up differently and do that? And then our purpose, at least mine, and I've seen this a lot of others, now we're making enough money in the $3 to $10 million mark. If it's a business that is relatively well ran, right? We're making enough money to where it's like, okay, I mean, I hit probably a lot of my income goals at this point. And we start to look at purpose and we say, what is my purpose and vision now? Well, that's where once again, we need to shift our purpose up. We need to elevate it up into usually its impact. Why should I grow this business? If it's just for my own significance, if it's just from my own bank account, we're probably at a number that we can already buy most of what we want to buy, right? Within reason. You can rent the private jet for a flight. You can do the yacht for the week. You're not going to buy them, but man, you're making some good money. And so I'm like, well, why do I want to keep growing this thing? Why do I want to keep showing up to work? We got to have something we're moving towards now. We got to have something where we're going. The business now should fuel my life vision. Number one, I need to have clarity on my vision, and the business is solely as it exists I'm hiring this is a phrase that came up last year, Mark. I'm like, I hire employees and I hire consultants. People hire you. They hire you to solve a problem. And what we forget with that business, like in the instance where you talked about where you're at that $2 million mark and you just feel like you're just waking up just to make payroll, we have to pull back and say, what did I hire my business to do for me? What did I hire my business to do for me? And is that business doing that for me right now? And if it's not, I need to get clear on what I'm hiring my business for. Because if I'm not liking it, I'm probably not clear what I hired it for. And at that point, when I started to get stuck right around the $7 to $8 million mark, and I knew the $10 million was approaching and I need to shift into a different type of a leader, I had that moment, dude. I had the moment of like, should I sell? Because this is getting hard. This is getting way uncomfortable. And I pull back and I go, well, what did I hire this business to do? When we hit pain lanes, there's three things that happen. Number one, we think about selling. Okay. If it's a sellable business, maybe I can get rid of this pain by just selling my way out of it. Okay. Number two, we sabotage. We inadvertently just stop doing the things that we know that we need to do because we know that if we take that email or we take that phone call or we onboard that client, that it's going to make things harder because we didn't fix the root issue of the process, the people, or the system. We self-sabotage and avoid the things that are going to grow the business because it's going to create more pain. Okay. The third one is we settle. We look back a level or two to what was comfortable. When we hit those spots, we have to make the decision. What are we going to do? We can grow through the pain, which requires an identity upgrade. Okay. Or we can step into and embrace the pain and move into one of those three things potentially.
Is this something you found or is this something that you developed over time?
No, I've got a friend named Alex Sharfin. I met at Russell Brunson's mastermind years ago, 2015. And Alex is what gave me the idea of this. So putting the revenue levels. He didn't invent the tens and threes. Clayton Mask, Infusionsoft, he wrote a book, Conquering the Chaos, way back when, I think in 2009. He mentioned the tens and threes. I don't know who invented that, but I borrowed that because it makes a lot of sense. I've experienced that actually happens. And what I discovered, though, Mark, was I wrote this down in 2016. I was at the coffee shop across the street. I'll visualize it for everyone listening. And I was sitting there going, this would have been 15 years ago. I wrote my life vision story. Okay. Life vision story. And I remember this would have been 2008. I went to my first ever event of any kind. I won a ticket to this event. I didn't have the money to pay to go to this event. It ended up being a 7 or 8 day event with a Rich Schefren. It was called the New Beginnings event. Had everybody there, dude. Jeff Walker, Frank Kern, Jay Abraham. Like you just keep on naming everybody. And Frank Kern gave this presentation that for him became pretty famous. And he called it like the core belief or something like that presentation. I was right up there in the front row during it. And he walked through his whole journey and his story. And he said the thing that changed his life was he sat down and he thought like, what's my perfect ideal average day? What's my perfect ideal average day? Not like the blowing it out of the water. I love Metallica and I'm just like partying with Metallica for 24-hour day. I'm talking if you had to wake up every day and live this day plus or minus, every day for the rest of your life, you'd be pretty happy with it. And he just said, like, close your eyes and like literally from the second you wake up to the second you go to bed, just write down everything that you see, that you're talking about, that you're seeing. Write down everything. Write down every moment you can. And I still do it today. I've got mine right over here. And I wrote 6 pages, dude, just handwritten of what my ideal average day was going to look like. And until I did that, I wasn't really clear what life I wanted to build. Okay. Until I did that, I wasn't really clear what role my business was going to have in my life. And clearly, like, I didn't work 9 to 5 in that day, but I did work. I wanted to work. And I only did certain activities. And I, at that time, I didn't know about the energy audit, but in that original vision, and even mine, especially mine today, the stuff that I did only gave me energy. It was with people I enjoyed. Right. And so when I did that, and I was sitting across at the coffee shop in 2016, sitting down and going, okay, in my original vision, it didn't include me running a business on the day to day. How do I now step into that? How do I step into that vision that I wrote down? And I go, well, I've got to start to kind of document how I think about business. And one of the things I'd encourage everyone to do is think like, what is the thing I'm actually trying to get out of this? What am I hiring this business to do? For me, what I was hiring my business to do was to give me freedom and impact. And so I wrote that just right in the middle of the paper. I'm like, freedom and impact. It wasn't to get rich. Like if that is a part of freedom and impact, amazing. But there's freedom and impact. If I run a business, I don't have true freedom and I'm not making a true impact, I don't want a part of it. I don't care how much money I make. So then I sat there and went, well, how do you build a business of freedom and impact? And I looked at the success we'd had up to that point with Carrot, and I borrowed from other people. And I worked through a bunch of variations of this, but this is the one that I have today. And it was like, well, the first thing, man, you got to have purpose. You got to have a reason you're doing that excites you. The second thing was, well, it's hard to do it. And I've done the opposite of this. It's hard to do it if you have a business that doesn't bring in consistent profits. My previous business with Patrick Riddle, we made good money at the end of the year. But the problem, Mark, was this. We'd make $145,000 one month. 3 months later, we'd split $6,000. And then it would just go like this. At the end of our tax return made it look like we made a good income, but we were stressed as crap every month because we didn't know where our revenue was going to come from that next month. Okay. So I'm like, consistent profits. That's got to be a key part of any business I ever build. And then the third part was, I'm like, well, if I believe in what I'm doing and I have a business that builds me consistent profits, I can still get trapped in the thing. I can still get trapped in it because it's sucking all my time and energy. And so I thought, man, energy and time has got to be the third part. If I build a business that has purpose and it's consistently profitable, I can predict within a 10% variance in 6 to 12 months what my income is going to be. That's freedom. And then if I'm able to get my energy and time back, dude, that's a business I want. Okay. So that's what created what I call my entrepreneur freedom formula, which you're seeing on the screen, but I visualize it's this Venn diagram for everyone. And then within that, then I'm like, well, dude, how do we create a business of purpose? How do we create a business of consistent profits? How do we create a business of energy and time? And what happens when we're not? Like if we're in this part here where we have a business that we feel purpose about and it's consistently profitable, but man, we have no time, right? We're working 60 hours a week. We're in a hustle and grind business. You're like, I enjoy what I'm doing. It's consistently profitable. Man, I have no time and I'm out of energy. That means we need to get more of the energy and time back. And I've got a process for that. My energy audit that I just described, the right playbooks and delegating the right things. If I'm over here, I'll describe it. And I'm like, man, this business is purposeful. I've got all the time in the world to go do things. I enjoy it. Like, I feel like but you're going, man, I'm just not really making a lot of money doing this thing. It's a struggle. That's what I would call a passion project, right? It's like, hey, you love it. They're not making any money. That's a passion project until you figure out how to get consistent profits. Well, you need a strategy. You need to add leverage to it. You need to do what I call adding an evergreen foundation. The last one, I'll toss it back to you. And I've met many of our customers like this. Man, I'm crushing it. I'm making a lot of money. I'm making $150,000 a month in profit or whatever the number is. And dude, I delegated well. I bought time back. I'm working 10 hours a week now. There's a client of ours, Keith. He came to one of my events called a Carrot Camp here. And he came here in the hustle and grind mode. Dude, I'm excited about what I'm doing. I'm making good money, but dude, I'm working 60 hours a week. I'm hating this. We got him to get a team. We got him to delegate the right things. He comes back to the next Carrot Camp. He's like, dude, I'm not working 60 hours a week anymore. I'm working 10. We go, amazing. We're celebrating with him. And it was weird because he was just dull the whole time. And I'm like, dude, what's wrong, Keith? Like, you literally did exactly what you hoped you were going to do. Because I feel empty. I just feel empty. I feel like I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's a lifestyle business. I never want a lifestyle business. Never want a lifestyle business. And so, Mark, what these are, the reason I brought this up is because this is what I then took and I said, well, I started working with a bunch of other entrepreneurs. And I found that the things that they had to solve, the things that they delegated, the playbooks they needed to make, the visions and the strategies that they needed to have, and the identity upgrades that they needed to have were different at every revenue level. So that's when I took this and I said, well, let me plot them on revenues. And I'm going to walk through. And it took me about 1.5 years of working with a lot of people and myself to go, okay, this is about what almost everyone hits at these, with each one of those sections of Entrepreneur Freedom Formula at each revenue level.
This is huge. And thank you for walking us through that, because it's one of those things. I remember I was at a Tony Robbins event and I think he said, this year's 10 is next year's 5 kind of thing. Like this is a constant balancing act. And that kind of bothers me. I'm a builder. I'm trying to identify as a maintainer, but I'd much rather spend my time building something.
Dude, don't do it. Don't try to, if that's not what gives you energy, man, there's people that love that stuff.
Oh my goodness. It's just like, to me, maintenance is like such a waste of time and energy and money, because you're just spending all of this effort to keep things the way they are. Like, no, I'd much rather improve and optimize and build and do all of these things. So thank you for giving me permission to that. But you remind me, and I think it's from the book Rigging the Game by Dan Nicholson, but there's this idea of you got to get comfortable building for now, not forever.
Yeah.
Right. And I think again, it's from this book. And I believe he gives this illustration of, you might be looking to build a new ERP or a new CRM within your company. And you might be thinking, well, gosh, we're going to spend 6 months, 9 months, 8, 10, 12 months on this integration, or we're going to do this or whatever it is. We're going to get a SaaS, maybe like yours. We're going to bring it in. But there's a lot of effort and a lot of time to put into this. And even though we only need, this solution now, but in 3 years, gosh, we're going to be so much bigger. We're going to be so much like, if we're going to invest all this time and effort, why build something that we could use right now? Let's actually build the thing we're going to need in 3 years.
Yeah.
And then the trap we run into is we spend a lot of time building this thing that we will one day be ready for, but we can't use it right now because we're not ready for it. And we may never, by the time 3 years goes by, we actually can't even forecast what we might need by then.
Yeah.
And
the game already changed by then, so it might not even be relevant at that point.
So in fact, we're left with nothing. And I was reading this, and I was at an event, and I was speaking to a business owner, and he was talking about this very thing. I said, build it for now, not forever. Give yourself permission to build something for what you need right now, knowing in 12 months, you may have to actually throw it away.
Exactly.
And so with these milestones, with these challenges, with these pain points, these pain lines, these pain thresholds we need to grow by, I believe that one thing we need to get comfortable with is just knowing that whatever we build right now is not something that is either endlessly scalable or going to work in every situation or at every point. We have to continually be building past and through each of these growth points. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, you definitely have to. And here's something I'll kind of put out to the group here too. And this might be in some circles controversial potentially, but I'm a big believer, Mark, in I don't believe that everybody's company should grow. I don't believe in that every company has to grow. I believe that whatever your life vision is, as long as you feel good about it and excites you, it gives you energy, right? It excites you like, yeah, that's the life I want. That's what we should build our business towards. The second that our business is fulfilling that for us, until we revamp and have a bigger vision that requires the business to grow, I always want to give people permission to say, dude, keep your business the same size. Or I want to give people the permission to go, man, your business is bigger than it needs to be to be able to make the impact and build a life that you want to build. Scale it back, right? And I want to make sure people recognize and realize it's not illegal to scale your business back. It's okay to scale your business back, as long as you recognize that scaling the business back means you're making a core decision to build the business around you, which is okay. As long as that's what you truly want and you're not doing it because the pain line was so hard you couldn't grow through it, right? If your aspiration is actually that you want this bigger life and this bigger impact, but you're giving up on working through the changes you need to make through that pain line, that's not okay. Okay. That pain line is there so you can grow, so you have that opportunity to become someone better. But where I'll talk with people and they're like, man, I want to do $7 million this year in revenue. The first question I always ask Mark is like, I go, why? Oh, that number sounds amazing. Why do you want that number? And they're like, well, because we did 4 million this year and I think we can keep growing. We have this new product. I'm like, that all sounds great. Yeah, you'll be able to hit 7. I have confidence, but like, why the 7? What is the 7 going to help you do? What are you hiring the 7 to do in your life other than just keep you busy? Right? Are we chasing a bigger number because bigger numbers, there's always a bigger number. And we think that bigger number equals I get into a bigger room and I feel better about myself and all these things. That's a never ending chase. There's always a bigger room. There's always a bigger number. There's always someone doing better than you are financially. So I want to play in a different game. I want to play in a completely different ball field. I don't play that ball field. I play the ball field of let me dream. Let me figure out the ideal average day that I want to live and the impact I want to make on this earth and the people I want to make it for and the things that give me energy. And I'm going to hire my business to do that, to deliver that. Okay. And that's it. Now, Elon Musk could not have a business that does 8 million a year because he's got a vision so big that it requires multiple billions of dollars a year in revenue to be able to get to Mars and be able to replace fossil fuels. His vision is so big, the business has to grow.
His vision is so big, he has to almost buy access to an entire government, doesn't
Everything. Yeah, exactly. So his vision is there. And that's where I want people to have permission to go, you know what? Get clear on what you want, get clear on why you want it, be excited about that, like release the how and just embrace the here's what I want and why it's important for me in my life. Eliminate the comparison stuff with others and then say, what business do I need to build? How big does it need to be for this year? Right? Because your vision might get bigger next year, but for this year, and then build that darn business, just like you said, build the things you need to build this year to make that happen. And then every year, what I do, I'm going through the process right now myself, is I've got a big planning process that I go through in a couple phases. And one of the things I do every single time, Mark, is I do an identity upgrade. It's a process I take my coaching clients through. I call it an identity upgrade. And I go through it. I'm like, okay, what am I proud about? Like, where am I proud of how I'm showing up in life? Write those things down. Where am I not proud? That I'm just not proud I show up in this way. And then I write down, and this is after me writing down that ideal average day. Then I write down, like, what are the gaps between that ideal average day and the person I'm currently being right now? Who do I need to become? So then I write down, like, here's the traits I need to step into. And then I'll picture 2 or 3 people that have those traits, or people that I admire. I'm like, man, I really admire Dan Martell for these 3 reasons. Love these 3 ways. I really admire Craig Groeschel for these 2 things. Man, I admire the heck out of this guy right here for this one thing. I write those traits down. Okay. And then I'm like, what do I got to do to adopt those traits? Because if I want to live that life, I need to step into an identity of a person who's able to live that life, which means I need to adopt new traits. And then I write down my core 3. I go, like, who are the 3 people I need to get closer to this year? These 3 people have those traits. So I want to get around them. I want to start to learn how to adopt those traits. And I finish with my 5 non-negotiables. I have 5 daily non-negotiables. They're on my phone every day, that are just the things, they're basic life stuff, right? Sweat every day. That's going to be one of the things that helps me live that ideal. I reach out to at least 3 people every single day, text message or DM 3 people a day. And that creates business opportunities, but also it just helps to, show love to the world. I read 10 pages a day. In order to get where I want to go, I need to learn more, and I need to create a habit of being quiet. I've never listened to an audiobook in my life. I always read. Because for me, it's about being quiet. For me, it's about cutting distraction. For me, it's about focus, because I have a hard time focusing, dude. My brain's always all over the place. And so reading, and I've got a couple more in there, but that's what I go through. And the reason I even brought this up is when you said, well, man, we got to build for this year. We got to know what the heck we're building for this year first. What did we hire that business to do? And then what vision do we have? And who do we need to become? And then just enjoy the process as much as possible. Those pain lines are there for you. They're not to you. Those pain lines are there for you to grow. They're hard, and you get the choice to grow through them if your vision requires it. And you get the choice to say, I don't want to grow through them because I'm not going to keep up with the Joneses, and a smaller business will fulfill my vision as it is.
You've been really generous with your time, and I appreciate it, Trevor. But I know that you can't skip these steps on your first time around, because the weight, if you drop me into a $30 million a year company, the weight of it would probably crush me. And so I know you can't skip them around the first time around, but on your second, on your third, on your fourth venture, or maybe you've driven it in the ground, you've gone bankrupt a few times, like these things happen. On the next time around, can you skip some of these steps?
Yep, 100%. So there's a couple ways to skip or accelerate through. So here's the thing. Somebody in your organization is going to experience these pain lines. Somebody. But it doesn't have to be you, right? And so here's what I mean. If I were to start a new company, well, I'll give you an example. So a company that my brother, Kyle, started, and I funded the early days of it. It's blown up. They're going to do about $30 million in revenue this year. It's a sports business. So if you're a baseball fan and you're watching the World Series, you see Jazz Chisholm and Luke Weaver and Bryce Harper in the playoffs. Those guys are all wearing his gear. Blew up. As he sailed past the million and sailed past 3, he's the design guy, and he hired his friend, his gal who he used to live with, as the COO. I'm like, dude, she's not your COO. And so if he had not had me to go through that with him, I said, no, we need to get a true executive to be your COO. Let's just skip 2 or 3 steps right here. These are growing so fast. So we went out and found the number 9 employee at Under Armour. He'd been there for 20 something years. He was the right-hand guy. He took Under Armour into baseball. He took Under Armour and nailed their manufacturing facilities in China. He did all that stuff. We recruited him. He's our COO now. Has been for a year and a half. So he sailed through that. That's why he was able to go past the $10 million mark up to 30 in an instant, like in a year and a half. Okay. Because he skipped some steps. But I think that's where having a map, like I showed here, the reason I created that little chart, dude, it's not because I think it looks cool. It's not because, oh man, if I show a chart, they'll all think I'm just really smart. Dude, it's because sometimes we just need a map, right? If you've ever ran a marathon or a half marathon or done something hard, I've got a buddy who used to work for me, Kylie. And Kylie, he ran a marathon a month for a year. And he's ran ultra marathons and the whole thing. I've done 2 half marathons, never done a marathon. But he goes, what happens is this. He goes, the first time that I ran a marathon, I didn't ask anybody what it was going to be like. So he said at like mile 18, he just like his body, he goes, it felt like I was going to die. Right. And everything in me wanted to give up. He goes, what I didn't know, but I pushed through it. He said, I know that there are other people on the race didn't push through it. I didn't know that if I would just push through it for another mile or 2, I'd get all my energy back. And then I have another 4, 5, 6 miles, and it would hit again. It hit him again at like 22, 23 miles. Okay. Where I'm going with this is this, Mark. He said, if someone would have just told me ahead of time that somewhere around mile 16 to 20, it's going to hurt. And you just got to put your head down and push through it. And here's a couple things you can do. Take a new energy gel shot and then just like count your steps or whatever the technique is. You're going to make it through it. And then there's going to be another one. Prepare for that. Here's what you need to do. You're probably going to be under energied. You need to do this. Take the fluid at mile 22, whatever it is. He's like, dude, that would have been so much easier. I would have known what's coming. The pain wouldn't have been less. You're still going to hit those pain lines. But now you can prepare and move through it quicker with more joy because you know what's coming and you know how to get through it. So that to me is why this is so important. And that is one of the ways you can accelerate through it or potentially skip it. Is if you know the map already, dude, you go, oh man, I'm already at $1.5 million. I know that at 3 million, I'm going to need to step in to be a builder. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hire a coach who's going to help me be a builder before I actually hit that pain line.
Last question for you. If this is the How to Sell More podcast, and we've been talking about a lot of stuff with mindset, but if you gave us one tip or one strategy to help those of us listening sell more, what would that be?
Dude, the biggest thing for selling, and I love selling, man. I could do 3 hours on selling as well. I absolutely love selling. The biggest thing, I'm going to give it 2. The first thing is you have to believe so deeply in your product that it solves the problem better than anything else. That's going to be the best possible way to do better sales. Working with one of my team members, they were selling a product of ours and they weren't having a lot of success with it. And I would go in and sell it really, really well. And I'm just going like, dude, he's doing the things, but what is making it not work? He didn't have the firsthand knowledge to have the conviction that I had that it worked as well as it did. So where a person would bring up an objection, he would kind of pull back a little bit because he didn't have the conviction. Where someone would bring up the objection to me, I'm like, in my brain, I'm going, I know that if you don't do this, you're going to be in so much pain because there's no one else who can do this as good as we can. I'm going to do everything in my power to sell you this product, to sell you this solution, because I know that I have your pain pill for you and I'm going to solve it for you. And I'm not going to let you go because I'm going to feel like shit if I do. So that's the first thing. You got to have so insane conviction on your product. If you don't have conviction on your product, go to work on your product and stop selling. Okay. Go to work on your product and stop selling. Make it the best damn product and the best solution for that use case. And that will be your sales pitch. Okay. Number 2, on the sales side of it, what I always do is there's something called 5 dominoes. I can come back and talk through my 5 dominoes.
We're going to have you on, man. We're going to have you back and we're just going to talk about sales next time.
There's 5 dominoes. I'm going to go through the 5 dominoes really quickly here, and I'll plan a massive cliffhanger, and we'll come back and do it later. But the 5 dominoes, a lot of people go in and they're going to ask people some questions like, hey, what's your problem? Da, 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 whatever. But when you look at the big people, you look at like Salesforce and you look at even ClickFunnels, those ones. This back in 2016, I deconstructed their slide decks, their pitch decks, their sales decks. I deconstructed those. I hopped on sales calls with all their people. And I said, with these companies that are growing the most, is there anything in common? I found that they all did these 5 things. 100% of the ones that were scaling massively on sales did these 5 things. Okay. And in order to hit the last domino, which is the sale, they had to hit the first domino. When they hit the first domino, the second one happened, the third one happened, fourth, fifth. First domino is we have to get people to believe it and see that there's an industry shift. There's something shifting. Okay. There's a shift happening and we need to get them nodding their head going, oh my gosh, yeah, I see this shift happening. I see that. Okay. Number 2. We've then got to, and that gets them to pay attention. You're not selling anything right now. You're just telling them, you're saying, hey, here's what we're seeing in the market. Are you seeing this? Oh my gosh, I'm seeing this too. Number 2, then we go, well, here's what we're finding. So in order to do well through that shift, the current vehicle you're in, like I'm not going to say this, but the current vehicle they're using won't do it. It's not going to cut it. It's not going to cut the mustard, as my college baseball coach would say. Not going to cut the mustard to be able to make it be successful in that market shift. Okay. So you point out all the reasons that your current vehicle is going to kill you through this shift. Okay. And you're planting seeds of doubt. Now they're like, damn, I see it coming. Jeez, what do I do? The thing I'm using is obviously, I'm scared now. Number 3, you paint a new vision forward. Hey, you know what? Here's the shift that's happening, and here's all the challenges that are going to happen with continuing to use websites the way that they normally are, with continuing to do SEO or continue to do direct mail or whatever it is, right? You go, well, here's the vision forward. Because this shift is happening, here's the opportunities that are going to open up. And in order to get these opportunities, this thing is going to help you get there the best. Okay? And it just so happens that our thing does that really, really well. Number 4 is we need to deliver proof. Hey, I got you to this point. You're believing it. Here's the direction you need to go. You're convicted the direction you need to go. And if you believe the industry is shifting, you have to go this direction now because the industry is shifting. And I planted all these seeds out in your current vehicle, right? Now I go, let me show you proof. Here's how Johnny did it. Here's how Mark did it. Here's how this person did it, just like you. And then the last domino is a call to action. So that was probably a longer answer than you're looking for, Mark. I could do a masterclass on that and like how you do those. But those are the 2. Conviction in your product. You've got to have dead focus, like 100% conviction that it works better than anything else. If not, work on your product. Number 2, hit the 5 dominoes before just selling the product.
Like a good salesperson, we should never let you out of this meeting without scheduling the next one. So I'm going to have you back on in the spring, and we'll bring you back on to do this. Are you up for that?
Awesome, buddy. Yeah, let's make it happen, man.
And that was my conversation with Trevor Mauch, CEO of Carrot. If you want to learn more about Trevor's work, you can check him out over at carrot.com. Or if you'd like the free resources, the downloads, the charts that we walked through today, head over to trevormauch.com/freedom. That's trevormauch.com/freedom. You don't have to put in any emails. You don't have to jump into his funnel. They're literally go to trevormauch.com/freedom and they're right there on the page. Now, if you want to connect with him a little bit further, you can dig into his podcast over on his YouTube channel, or you can check him out over on LinkedIn. Now, while you're over on LinkedIn, feel free to give me a look up as well. My name is Mark Drager. My details are in the episode show notes. I'd love to answer any questions, get to know you a little bit better. I love connecting with podcast listeners every chance that I get. Now, one last thing, if you're still with me, if you made it this far into the show, you really should subscribe. And here's why. Each and every week, we share actionable tips, strategies, lessons, and advice, just like what Trevor shared with us today, to help you grow your business and to become a better sales and marketing leader. So with that, I want to thank you for listening. We're going to wrap up this episode. I am Mark Drager, and I will catch you in the next one.